at the Rose Bowl with the Los Angeles Times. I'm Lindsay Theory, joined by Bill Plaschke and Chris Foster. Washington State defeats UCLA 31-27. Chris, you've followed these Bruins a long time. Are you surprised?
I would like to say I'm surprised, but I've seen them gaff games before, and they really outdid themselves tonight. I think you can point to a number of mistakes and shortcomings they had. It was just one of those low points of Jim Mora's tenure here at UCLA.
Bill, we're graced by your presence here tonight. You're bundled up for the cold. It was pretty chilly here in the Rose Bowl.
I love the fact that Chris used the word gaff as a verb. That's what you get from the LA Times every day, and he's right, but that's the best way to say it. They gaffed it. They were down on the 2-yard line the first 2 possessions of the game. They couldn't convert. They had to settle for field goals. It was downhill the rest of the way. And of course, at the very end of the game, Josh Rosen, tremendous 36-yard run. Looks like they're going to win the game in the final minute. Everyone's going crazy. The Rose Bowl's rocking. Literally 5 minutes on the clock later. It seems like 5 minutes in real time later. Washington State drives back down and wins the game. Stunning. It should be stunning, but Chris is right. It's not stunning.
Chris, it was a pretty brief appearance from Jim Mora in the post-game press conference, though he seemed a little bit cheery or maybe upbeat. What do you make of that?
Well, Jim puts on a good face sometimes. I have a feeling cheery is not exactly his disposition. Bill's right. Rosen's play on that last drive was brilliant. He got him there, but they had one little problem. They had to put their defense back out on the field, and their defense is becoming more and more of a problem, as is their offensive line's inability to understand what the snap count is. They had 6 false starts tonight, 2 of them inside the 10-yard line on that first drive, as Bill mentioned.
I was going to mention penalties, Bill. When do the Bruins learn that they can't have that many penalties?
Such a lack of discipline in the Jim Mora era. They're in the top worst 10 most penalized teams in college football. That showed it tonight. And I thought it was interesting, Josh Rosen was asked if he thought the game was over when he scored what we thought was a winning touchdown with a minute 6 left or something. And he said, I didn't, but everyone else did, meaning he thinks that perhaps the defense and perhaps the rest of the team, perhaps he implied, let down a little bit. What do you think, Chris?
Well, I don't know if they let down a little bit that much, as the fact is that they just have some shortcomings. I mean, obviously the injuries they've had on the defense have taken away some of their best players, but they just don't seem to be able to make plays against good teams. And let's face it, Washington State's a good team now, and against good teams they don't seem to be able to come up with those type of plays anymore.
If there's any silver lining to UCLA's loss tonight, it's the fact that Utah lost to Arizona in the desert. UCLA will play the Utes next week, and then we'll close out the regular season with a game at the Coliseum against USC. Bill, UCLA could still win the Pac-12 South and go to the title game.
It's incredible to me that they still have a chance to control their own destiny. But all I can say is I got a tweet from somewhere, a text from somewhere after the game saying, hey, USC's in first place now. So, I mean, people think, USC can control its own destiny as well. And tonight, UCLA didn't look like a team that has the ability to actually control its own destiny.
Chris, you've been around the program long enough. Like I already mentioned, is this a UCLA team that can take these 3 conference losses and turn it into a positive?
Well, I don't think they're going to win the division. I just don't see how they can sweep SC and Utah. It's just it's too much for them. It'll come back to the defense again. It's too much for that defense to try to pull out. They're not very good against the run anymore, and Utah and USC run the ball well. I just think that they've reached a level under Jim Mora. I think they could go higher, but until they start getting over some of these hurdles and becoming a more disciplined football team, this is UCLA football. 8 or 9 wins a year and crowds streaming out of the Rose Bowl at halftime because they're kind of tired of the play they're seeing.
Josh Rosen gave me what I think is a motto for the Bruins under the Jim Mora era. I asked him how he felt after scoring what we thought was a winning touchdown, then watching Washington State drive down for what was really the winning touchdown, and he looked at me and he said, excited. He said, ecstatic, then frustrated. That's the motto for the whole era. They're right. Every game, big games, bad games, great moments, bad moments. That's Jim Mora football.
And on that note, it's 2 a.m. at the Rose Bowl, and we're gonna head out of here. All right, UCLA once again loses to Washington State 31-27. They're in Utah next week to take on the Utes. With Bill Plaschke and Chris Foster, I'm Lindsay Theory for the Los Angeles Times.